Weekend preview. Let me start with Manny Pacquiao versus Chris Algieri. I think this is an interesting fight, stylistically interesting as well. When the fight was first made, perception seemed to be that it would be an easy night for Pacquiao. Now people, the online consensus seems to be it's a closer fight. I think people are buying into Algieri's talk, the shape he's coming at, his confidence, and people are thinking it could be more of a tight fight for Pacquiao. Um, the way I look at it, I think a key piece of form here is the Provodnikov Algieri fight. That was a very, very close fight. Very controversial for Ruslan Provodnikov to lose his belt under those circumstances. Now, I'm not saying Algieri didn't deserve the win that day. I'm not saying Provodnikov won, but it was a very, very tight fight. That was a life or death battle. Provodnikov dropped Algieri several times, as we know. Now, Manny Pacquiao, even today, even after the KO to Marquez, even after the loss to Bradley, whether you call it a loss or whatever, is, in my opinion, a better fighter than Ruslan Provodnikov. Provodnikov possibly has more power than the 2014 Manny Pacquiao, but Manny Pacquiao is a much more skillful, much more agile opponent who I would say certainly has the edge in speed, experience, technical ability, whatever you like to say it. Now, what I find interesting is Chris Algieri is sort of quick to label this as himself as the master boxer versus more of a come-forward style fighter. And he's right in a sense. Pacquiao is a guy who likes to press the pace. Provodnikov was a guy who liked to press the pace. But we must remember that Algieri scraped home to victory against Provodnikov. It was very, very tight, very controversial that he took Provodnikov's belts. It wasn't as if Algieri humiliated Provodnikov for the entire 12 rounds. It wasn't as if he was able to dance around jabbing his head off. It was a very, very tight fight where he was dropped. Now, to my reckoning, it will be similar in one sense, that Pacquiao will be dictating the pace, coming forward, pressing the action. Algieri probably will be on his back foot. Pacquiao, I don't think Pacquiao is a big puncher at welterweight. I know this fight's at a catchweight, but still in the welterweight division, and I don't think Pacquiao's a big puncher. But I think Pacquiao has the speed advantage in this fight. I also think Pacquiao has the power advantage. I think the only area that Algieri does win, which is quite bizarre if you consider that Manny Pacquiao is coming slightly down in weight and Algieri is going slightly up, is Algieri's the bigger man. Algieri's the rangier man. Algieri, probably has the size advantage. But what I will say is he's not just going to be able to stay at range and pepper Pacquiao with a jab. He's not going to be able to outbox Pacquiao in the same way a master boxer could outbox Provodnikov, because Pacquiao is going to be coming forward in far more advanced ways than Provodnikov was. Pacquiao is going to be throwing much faster, much more technical work than Provodnikov was, and I question whether Algieri has got the power to sort of hurt Pacquiao. I think all in all, I see this one going 12. We know Provodnikov is a big puncher, but Algieri was able to sort of, even though he was dropped, was able to get up, was able to fight on. He showed durability, he showed recovery. So I see it going 12, and I think I'd probably score it to Manny Pacquiao, something like 9 rounds to 3. I think Algieri will have spells in the fight. There may be rounds he'll be able to nick on the back foot, but I think all in all, Pacquiao will still be a bit too dynamic for him to outwork in certain rounds like he did against Provodnikov. So I think Pacquiao will win in a tightish fight, but I don't think there'll be too many people thinking Algieri will have got the victory at the end of the fight. I think it's too much of a step up in class for Chris Algieri too quickly, and I think we must remember how close that Provodnikov fight was. It was not that he went out there and destroyed Ruslan. It was, they were very, very evenly matched fighters, and I think Pacquiao has got a lot more than Provodnikov. Turning to the UK action, I won't talk in too much detail about Cleverly Bellew because I've done a number of videos leading up to the fight on that, and anyone who watches my channel will know my thoughts on the fight. I am going for Cleverly on points. I think Cleverly is a far more advanced boxer. I think he's got more attributes. I think he's faster, got a better work rate, got a better chin. I'm not convinced by Tony Bellew. He hasn't beat someone I consider to be A-class in his entire career. I'm not convinced by him being a massive puncher. If anything, I think Cleverly's hitting a bit harder, and I expect Cleverly to outwork and to frustrate Bellew. I expect Cleverly's athleticism, work rate, and increased punching power at cruiserweight to be relevant factors in this fight. Whether Cleverly's got quite enough zip in his and snap in his punches to get Bellew out of there, I'm not convinced. I haven't fully committed to a Cleverly knockout. I think the most likely result here is Cleverly on points. I think Bellew will have spells in the fight. As I say, I'm not convinced about him being an elite level puncher, but he can certainly hit a bit. And I think moving up in weight, there may be spells in the fight where Bellew is effective. But overall, I think Cleverly on points, and I'd be surprised, I'm very impressed if Tony Bellew was able to turn the tables in this one. I think there's just too much against him, and he's too limited to beat a fighter of Nathan Cleverly's capabilities. On the undercard, Sprott versus Joshua. Prediction is that Joshua finishes the job within the first 2 rounds. Sprott got beaten by Kali Meehan and Erkan Teper in 1. I view Joshua as ahead of both of those guys at this stage. Sprott, has some offensive effectiveness, but he's been too inactive, he's too old, and he's too out of shape to be offensively capable against Joshua, and I don't think his defense will hold up against Joshua's power and Joshua's range. So I think Joshua wins that fight early. I don't really view Sprott as a step forward above Denis Baktov. If those two fought, I wouldn't really be swaying towards Sprott. So I think we could see a similar performance against another heavyweight who's got a lot of miles on the clock and is a bit smaller. Degale versus Marco Antonio Periban. I've watched this Periban yesterday and today at the weigh-in, and he weighed in at 170. I assume there must be some sort of catch weight that's been permitted for this fight, but it didn't surprise me that he was over the super middleweight limit. He's a very, very big man at the weight, tall. He's not one of these guys walking around with a six-pack, but he is a big, big lump, and I think James Degale is in for a real tough night with him. What I do think is that, people talk about this Periban's good because he's been in a close fight with Beaker, been in a close fight with Jaleon Love, Badu Jack. My personal opinion is that James Degale is a class above all of those guys. I think technically he's possibly Britain's best boxer. I think his inside game is as strong as his outside game. His footwork and hand speed is there. Combination punching, chin. He's got to stay off the ropes. That's the one thing I'd say. Got to stay off the ropes. He's got to box. Got to use movement. But I think he's thoroughly outclassed this guy. James Degale should not be losing to a guy who's been losing to, Beaker and Jaleon Love, etc. He's a class above that. So I expect James Degale to win, possibly in an untidy fight. I'd like to see Degale get a knockout. It's a huge opportunity to him to make a big statement, but I think points is more likely. Groves versus Dennis Douglin. I made a few comments about Groves' pre-fight attitude, but I think Groves gets the job done inside the distance. I'd predict first 3 or 4 rounds, based purely on the fact that his opponent, and funnily enough, his opponent also weighed in over the super middleweight limit, and I think had to be re-weighed. But the guy is not a natural super middleweight. He may just not be in shape, I don't know. But the guy's been knocked out twice at light middleweight. I don't think he's never fought a genuine super. I don't think he's going to cope with the skills and the weight and the power that Groves brings to the equation. So I think, similar to Joshua, Groves will have a pretty early night. Elsewhere on the bill, Jamie McDonnell, Scott Quigg, Bradley Saunders, Scotty Cardle. I'm not seeing any upsets there. Callum Smith's Locker, an interesting fight, a step up in class. I do think Smith will have enough to get the job done. All in all, if I'm being completely honest, I don't see an upset on any of the undercard fights. Possibly one of the reasons that this pay-per-view's been criticised so heavily, but I'd be very, very surprised if anyone who wasn't expected to win lost. I think James Degale's in the most competitive fight. I'm going Degale points, I'm going Cleverly points, I'm going Groves and Joshua by stoppage. Over in Macau, I'm going Manny Pacquiao points. Let me know your predictions. What do you think? Which fights are you most looking forward to? Who do you think is going to put on the showcase performance of the weekend? Thanks for watching. Follow me on Twitter at Boxing Gossip.